That part, brother. All right, just give me 1 second. All right. All right. We are on the show now. So welcome to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a good friend of mine. He and I spoke before, and so I ain't gonna say this is round two, but this is more like a redo. So welcome to the show, brother Jarred Edgerton. Did I get that right, bro?
You got 100% on, man. First time, go.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. Um, so I know that people don't know this, but you are an Army veteran, correct?
Yeah. United States
Was
Army.
it the Army?
It was Army. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. And before we get started, uh, I just want to say this to the viewers and any would-be viewers that come on to the podcast here. You can always go on my email at speakyourtruthpc@gmail.com. That's speakyourtruthpc, all one word, @gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you have any ideas even, or if you want to come on to the show, hit me up on Facebook. My name is Mark Ross, and I'm on there. Or you can go on my email and give me a message. So, with that said, man, let's begin, brother Jarred. Um, Tell the people who you are, where you're from, and what do you currently do.
Yeah, before we start, first I want to say thanks for having me on the show today. I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity.
Yes, sir.
I think as you mentioned, we did this before. The first time I was super nervous to come on and talk about my experience, but I look forward to it this time because um, that was 2019, I think it was 2020, maybe
19,
2020.
2020. Yep.
Yeah, so it's been
Yep.
a few years, and I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot, ups and downs, but I think I wanted to do this because I feel like this is necessary. It's progressive for veterans, combat veterans, everybody in that whole entire gambit. Because
Mhm.
sometimes when you hear other people's stories, like the last podcast you did, you can relate to things, and I think this is a positive experience. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, and thank you for putting this together, man. It's very necessary for the community.
Appreciate you, brother.
But
Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
yeah, thank you. But as you mentioned, my name is Jarred Edgerton. I was in the United States Army. Um, my primary MOS is military police. Didn't really do a lot of
Hmm.
military police stuff. Went to Kandahar, Afghanistan,
Hmm.
2010, 2011. Um, got out 2 years after doing that. Did 5 years total. Um, went through the ups and downs of life. Struggle with PTSD. It's an ongoing thing. So that's kind of what we're here today to talk
Hmm.
about. But born and raised Columbus, Ohio. Um, One
Hmm.
of two. I have an older brother. I'm the youngest in the family. Myself, I got married when I turned 18 before I joined the military. Four beautiful children of my own, a 16-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl, and I have two twins. They're just turned 11, well, turning 11 months old tomorrow. So, yeah,
Look
and
at
I'm like,
God.
look at God. Definitely a blessing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see you got a little bit of that gray up there, man.
Hey, man, I get more and more.
Hey, at least you don't got this gray beard, man. So we good on that end.
I've been plucking them. I get the
So,
tweezers out. Like when I get a long one, I'll pluck it. But one, two more grow back
uh,
when you pluck one.
yeah. My wife, she came on board. She said, "Good evening to you."
Oh,
So,
good evening to her.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um, okay, so we're here and we're talking about military PTSD. And just for those who are listening, let's just keep it real. PTSD is PTSD. But if you're in the military and you went through some trauma or traumas, our disconnect is different, right? Our disconnect is different in a way that we had to go through some life death situations, right? And when I mean by life and death, I mean by life and death as a military person, right? I'm not putting down what people never experienced in the military, because trauma is trauma. But the type of trauma that you and I have experienced as a result of serving our country, it just hits different. Would you agree with that?
I agree
It
100%.
hits
No,
different.
it definitely
Yeah,
does. I think
yeah,
all trauma I think puts you kind of in a box, and you feel like you're in that box. But being in a box in the military, like I said, not trying to minimize one type of trauma over the other, but when you're in
right,
the military, as you
right.
know, I mean, it's like you go through something, and sometimes like now in 2023, there's a lot of resources that exist for people, and sometimes people don't even know about them that they exist. But I got out in 2013, and there was resources then, but not as much as they are now. And then I'm sure, like when you were in the same thing, wasn't those resources, and there was a time probably where you really couldn't even speak up about that trauma that you were going through because you were looked at as weak, or you got
Yeah,
judged, or it
yeah.
affected your career. So and then just having to deal with that, and then you get the repeat trauma, and then sometimes you're going through trauma that you really don't even like realize it's trauma. It just becomes a norm to you.
Mhm.
Like this is normal. Like seeing people die, being put in situations where you have to make choices, to kill or not to kill, or make choices in someone's life, or make choices about like saving someone's life, or seeing people just maimed and different things. Um, sometimes it's become normal, and you'll realize how you minimalize it, and then, you might come home and talk to somebody and like yeah, I remember one time I seen this kid get have his face blown off, and I just we just kept moving on. What That's not normal. Those things aren't normal because
Mhm.
seeing your
Mhm.
best friend get killed was might have been the height of the traumatic situations that you faced. So seeing a local national kid get half of his face blown off, that doesn't traumatize you the same way because you see somebody you love and care about, get blown into pieces.
Right.
So, but we don't realize that because Army, like in your case, Marines, and tell you, hey, suck it up, drink water, and move on, take a knee, throw some dirt on it.
Right. Right. And we got to keep, and see, the crazy thing is when we experience that type of trauma, though, brother Jared, we're trained to keep going. We ain't
Yeah,
trained to sit here and pause. You know what I mean? We got to keep moving, right? We can't care if your homeboy, was taken out by somebody. Uh, it is what it is. You got to deal with it later. And see, that's the scary part. We have to deal with it later. And we don't know how to deal with that later because we were never told to appropriately deal with it. We was trained to keep it moving.
yeah,
so
absolutely right.
so yeah, yeah. So you you did your time in the military. You saw your best friend get taken out. You moved on as you had to do. You made it. What was it like for you being back in society after all of that? What were you thinking, like, okay, I'm back to being a civilian, now what?
So for me, it was a bit of a transition because I came back in 2011. I still had 2 years left in the military, so I was still like
Mm.
active duty at that time. So it was
Okay.
kind of a roller coaster before I got out. Coming back, some of the things like the indicators of PTSD that I know now were present, but I kind of ignored them. Like I just kind of moved through them and act like they didn't exist. And hey, you need to go get
Yeah.
help. And then I mean, it got to the point eventually where I got command referred to go to seek help by someone like who saw that like I was struggling and said like you need to go talk to somebody. So I dealt with that, like just still being in, still having the stress of the military, still kind of having to suck it up, go to work, do things like go
Mm.
to get up, go do PT, do all these things, still have to try to make the standards. And there was one point where I kind of stopped caring while I was still in active duty. Like I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna eat myself into oblivion. I don't care. I'm a combat vet.
Mm.
Like, what's somebody gonna say to me? Like, I really don't care. Like, about none of this. Hey, we got a PT test. I'm gonna start walking. halfway through because like honestly, there was a point where I can be honest and transparent. There was a time where I didn't care if I did live or die because I felt like I've seen
Right.
everything but death anyway, and I'm not afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
So realistically,
Mm-hmm.
if anything, whatever happens to me, I don't care. So you yelling at me about a PT test is not going to do anything. You can't beat my ass.
No.
You're not going to shoot me. You can't do anything. So you know what? I don't really care. Like, and I went through that struggle. Luckily, I did have great leadership around that time that kind of saw some of those things and they kind of reeled me in. If I had more toxic leadership around that time, I think it would have been a lot darker situation than it was. Um, but that was a transitional period for me. Then getting out into the civilian world, um, I don't know. I don't want to say I fell on my face because I didn't just like struggle completely. I got a job, I was working, but that's when I think things really went downhill because I didn't have that purpose anymore of being a soldier. There were
Mm-hmm.
certain things I was never going to let go. I was never going to fail the soldiers, like the younger junior soldiers that I would train up and were bringing up that had came in. As I was getting out, I was never going to fail them or never not show up or never not be a good soldier in certain ways. But there's certain things I didn't care about. But when I got out, it was like, well, I have a family. I know how to do this and how to take care of them. But like, I kind of lost everything. Like, like I don't know how to like to deal. Like I don't have to get up 6 o'clock in the morning anymore. I don't have to be here. No one's going to yell at me if I don't do this. I don't have anybody to train. I don't have a weapon system to maintain. Like I don't have
Mm-hmm.
a uniform that really matters anymore. I have a security guard uniform that
Yeah.
at this time and point I was what else I
Yeah.
was doing. So that was a hard period. It took me about 3 years from like
Sure.
2013 to about 2016 of just really struggling mentally to kind of like find my way. And so I mean yeah, 3 years off active duty, I kind of just like I don't know, just floated through life. Like I knew how to do the basics, pay the bills, get money, do those
Mm-hmm.
things, but
Yeah.
everything else I was
Yeah.
kind of winging it, really like mentally winging it. Dealing with the VA, that was a struggle.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
honestly, just not knowing, like just I don't want to say just not to the point of like being completely suicidal, but just being to the point where like what, like honestly, I still have I had veterans group life insurance at the time. Like, hey, if I die, my family will be okay. They'll get life insurance.
Yeah.
If I live,
Yeah.
like, and then I'm just gonna suffer more. So just kind of like just kind of floating through the motions, like being lost in the sauce for about 3 years, mentally.
Wow. That's a long time to be lost in the sauce there, brother.
It,
But
it,
I,
it
I,
was
I do, and I get it, man, because there was a good period of my life too that I can relate to where you're coming from, where yeah, I was going to work and going to school, but I I didn't really care. My grades reflected I really didn't care. I just wanted just to get by. I didn't care if I had
yeah,
a 2 point whatever or three. I didn't care. I was just going along with the motions. You know, me myself. I mean, I I didn't care. I didn't care if I lived or died. I drank myself to sleep a lot. A lot. uh, and it really didn't help me either because I was still dealing with the nightmares. I'm sure you dealt with those too. I mean, man, I mean, it was a mess, but I totally understand, the words that came out of your mouth, and it just resonated with me because I was where you were, you know. Um, but you say that you had a period where you were suicidal. Can you elaborate on that?
yeah. So just kind of like from getting it out, like even while it's still in, like you brought up drinking. I've never like been like I don't want to say career drinker, but obviously the military culture is like alcohol. So like my introduction to alcohol when I
Yeah.
joined the army without, I mean, underage at the time, obviously underage consumption because you're 18 years old. But just like
Right.
it was never like, hey, here's a sip of something, or hey, here's some wine, like things that I know now. I don't even really drink now, but um, like then it was like, no, like we're gonna go to the because on post or base they have liquor stores that are dedicated to where you can buy 36 cans of beer. I don't even like Pabst Blue Ribbon. I would never drink it today, but I drank it then because people I knew around me were drinking it. So it's like, and it
Right.
was like drink till you can just no longer drink anymore. It was never a type of conversational drink. So that was my relationship then, like, with like drinking and different things, like get-togethers and all that. And that's, like I said, that's not even who I am. So when I got back, I still drank some, but it wasn't as much. But I felt like when you talked about, you mentioned suicide, and like that feeling, for me, it was just like, you know what, like I don't want to be here. And my excuse was always, I have my family. But sometimes, like, I feel like the thought of creeping in, like, you know what? Honestly, I think they would be better off without me. I'm more of a burden. Like I'm
Mm,
more of a burden. My wife, like, I can't sleep right. I sleep on the floor at night. I'm up. Sometimes I have nightmares. Sometimes I'm yelling in my sleep. A
yeah.
lot of things my oldest daughter, like she might be like she'll warn me and say, "Hey, I'm behind you," because things like that. And so it was like sometimes I was like, you know what, like honestly, if I wasn't here, I think they would be okay. Like I never want to like picture my wife like moving on with a new man and a new family and all that. But it's like, you know what, maybe she would be okay, better off without me. And that thought was in my
Mm,
mind for a long time. Um, and then and then I went through like the self pity. So I'm sorry for myself, a lot of like survivor's guilt at the time, and then like which I've tried to really work on because sometimes like I let it get to the point where like I'm throwing myself a pity party, and like like I'm still here. I have every limb, I have every finger. Like mentally this thing will change, but I was to the point where I was like, like it's my fault. Like I've already did this, or we were complacent, and this is why this happened. And if we would have not been complacent or paid attention, this would have happened. If we didn't interact this way, that wouldn't have happened. Or I could have done this differently. And I struggled with that for
yeah.
a long time. Or like, why me? Why him and not me? Like what? Like it's not like I went through a period of like questioning my faith with God too. Like like why do you want me to go through these things? Like, why am I having to struggle and suffer through this the way I am? Like, I'm miserable. Like, my brain itches and I can't even scratch it. Like, God, like, why are you
Man,
doing this to me? You can't possibly
man.
love me if you were putting me through this. So you must not want me to be here
Mm,
either. So I went through that for a long period of time.
mm. So what made you realize like, okay, I need to get some help, man. I truly need to get some help to better myself.
So to kind of backtrack, so the help for me started in the military. So I think we talked about this last time so we did our interview. I think it was the beginning of 2020. So I had a company commander. His name was Christopher Noble. Um, Rest in peace. He's actually not with us anymore. He actually took his own life back in 2019, the Christmas Eve 2019. He took his own life, but he was like instrumental in me
Mm,
getting help. So he's the one that actually command referred me to go see a psychologist when I was like I think probably 6 months after coming back from deployment. He pulled me to his office one day and was like, "Listen, man, like I love you like as a brother, not like a brother." And he was like,
yeah,
"You're a grown man." He's like, "But like you're declining, and if you want to be okay in life, not the military, you need to go talk to somebody. Just talk to them. You don't have to do any kind of treatment plan. Just go talk to somebody. And if you don't like it, doesn't work, come back and we'll figure something else out." He's like, "But I know you're not going to
yeah,
go. So as your commander, I'm going to refer you to go." And I was pissed. Like I was highly upset. I was like, okay, now I gotta go. I gotta tell my
mm,
squad leader where I'm going. Maybe the word will get out that I'm going here. People will look at me differently. And that was my only thought. Not getting help, not being a better man for my family, myself.
mm,
How are people
mm,
going to view me
mm.
for going to behavioral health? So I went
Yep.
and I saw a doctor there, and believe it or not, like it was the total opposite. It was like a very great experience. Like just like the way she understood PTSD and like understood everything I was going through. Like the whole like told me how I felt like without me even saying a word. And I was like, I was just
Mm,
taken aback by it. So I was like, you know what, like, and I look forward to going to these Thursday sessions. And then it was like, I think like 7 weeks in, I went on Thursday. and she was like legit sad. And I was like, okay, this is weird. She doesn't be like this. Well, because the army will army and the government will government. They're like, you know, we're doing a realignment, so only certain brigades are going to have certain psychologists. So your doctor, her name was Dr. Fannin, is going to go to another brigade, and you have to go. You have to see a new psychologist. Well, I like crushed my
Yeah.
world. Like I got a new psychologist. It was a guy who just had his head up his ass, didn't know anything. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is why. This is why I should have never came in the first place. But then I stopped going to counseling. And I
Mm.
never went to counseling again to probably about 2016. You know, I went to the VA when I got out and did the whole like go through the motions thing and ask you questions. Do you want to hurt yourself? Do you want to talk
Yeah.
to somebody?
Yeah.
Do you want here's some medicine? This
Yeah.
is going to help you out. I did all that game plan, you know, for 3 years, but never anything serious till 2016. So yeah, it started for me in the military, and like I think honestly, I mean like the army's gonna army, but I feel like maybe I could have had more success, but like just the fact that they were like, we're just gonna do a realignment, and you can't see this doctor anymore because we think it's the best idea for soldiers to have, you know, whatever reason, like
Yeah.
so that kind of like really stunted a lot of me like you know a lot of like healing for me at the time. So like yeah, from 2012 when I was still in seeing her, 2016, no, nothing in between there, no counseling, no treatment, anything.
Hmm. Hmm. And you know, one thing that really like boils my noodle when it comes to the military is that they don't even recommend that you go.
No,
I never had I never had nobody say, hey, you know, since you're going to become a civilian again, maybe you should go to counseling because this transition is going to be difficult for you. And here's why. You know what I'm saying? Nobody sat down with me to prepare me for civilian life. It was just, uh, do you want to do 4 more years? Yes or no? If no, give me your stuff. You keep the dog tags and keep it moving. Right. And for me, it was like I just signed some papers, turned in my gear, right? And I drove from North Carolina to Milwaukee. Like, boom, I was done.
yeah,
I didn't know what I was driving home to. I knew that I was driving home to my family, but outside of that, like to civilian life, I didn't know. So that transition for me was hard. So that's kind of where I wanted to take you. Is like, was your transition hard to be just Jarred Edgerton? You know what I'm saying? Versus
yeah.
Sergeant Edgerton or whatever rank you were. You know what I'm saying? How was that transition for you?
You brought that story. I've heard that story from so many people. Like, hey, you know what? I remember literally keeping my dog tags and like some of my t-shirts, my underwear, socks,
Yeah,
everything else got like turned
that's
in,
it.
and nothing. So no, and I've heard that's so unfortunate because there's a lot of people who that because of that put them on a path and never recovered from it, never got to the level that you or I are at. They either they ended it all or they're living on a street under a bridge somewhere. You know, so that's sad. But for me, that transition definitely I felt like it was kind of a blur, honestly. Like when I got out, like I was honestly the first like couple of weeks I was happy to be out, happy like to not have to get up and you know early in the morning. So like it wasn't bad, but then the reality started setting in. And then honestly, I missed the army. Like I was like, I want to go back. Like I don't like, why did I even get out? Like I don't even know what to do. Like, you know, I was applying for jobs and like putting like I had made my first like real resume like I put
Yeah,
combat veteran on there, like you know all this stuff I did, literally get
yeah,
no calls, like no, I was applying everywhere, nothing. So I was like, why did I get that's when like the real depression kind of set in for me. It was like, you know what, like I made a mistake. Like the army was the best thing, and you know what? And there's people who told me don't get out. Like you get out, like it's gonna be the worst thing for you. And I was like, they were right. You know, I believe them. Like you know, I should have listened and then so that was a really hard time for me, that transition, just because like I didn't understand. I didn't have an understanding of like, okay, here's what I do when I get out. Here's what I should be doing, because there's no, they don't give you a roadmap or like, and, now things. I've heard really good things about transition program. They have programs in place, but when I got out, it wasn't like a program. We had a thing there. It was like, don't stop using military jargon when you get out. They taught us how to write a resume. I think in this class, it was called Army Career Assistance Program. You went for like 2 days. They taught you how to write a resume, taught you about professional dress,
Mm.
what it looked like, taught you to stop saying latrine and, not tell dirty military jokes. you
Yeah.
know,
Go to eat some chow.
yeah, yeah, like don't say child, don't eat fast,
Yeah.
don't make disparaging comments about women, like all kind of stuff, but never like, hey, like go get some mental health help, go talk to somebody. Those things that happen. So it was like,
Right.
and honestly, you're so used to being a soldier or being a Marine or a sailor, whatever you're in, what branch you're in, you're used to that. So it's like when you get out, it's like, okay, I don't have training on being a civilian. I saw a civilian, I was damn near a kid, and I was just leaving my parents' house.
Right.
Like I left my parents' house and joined the military. So it's like, well, I don't really know how to
Right.
do this. Like, so that was hard. I think that probably was the hardest time because, like I said, we all know the basics. We all know okay, I got to support my family, but how am I going to be okay? What is 10 years? What is 5 years of life for me? What is 10 years of life for me? And I didn't have that plan in place, like at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't even a thought. It was like, I'm just going to get out. I'm going to get a job. I'm a veteran. They'll hire me. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to be good. I want to make $100,000 in a couple of years.
Right. 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 That's the goal. Right.
Yeah. But that didn't happen
Man,
though.
I hate you. Didn't go the way you wanted.
Yeah.
Hey, I have another question. Um, you mentioned that your company commander took his life.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when you found out?
So
After he told you to go to counseling.
we talked the year prior, like 2 years prior to that. We had a real long talk because my friend his name was Andrew. But long story short, my son is actually named after my best friend. He got killed in Afghanistan. My son's name is Andrew. Um, we talked because I went to go visit his gravesite in Minnesota, my best friends, and we talked. He's like, "Hey man, that was really good of you to go out there." We had a long, we talked for a couple hours about the whole process. He was doing great. He was doing fine. He had just made major in the army. He was doing good,
Mm.
and then we kept him on Facebook Messenger. Like little messages here and there. And then it was Christmas Eve. I remember getting up, like getting gifts together, just doing all the stuff you do the day before, like rushing. And my friend Andrew's dad actually, because he was in contact with them too, had texted me and said, "Hey, Chris Noble just took his life," and I was like, I mean, I'll just be honest. I sat there and just cried for about a good, I don't know, probably 30 minutes, just like in disbelief, like. Because I remember I never forget. Like I was walking down the hallway, he pulled me in his office, and he was like, "Hey man, I love you as a brother. You need to get help." Like, I remember him saying, not as a soldier, as a man, like you need help, and this isn't about the army. This is about you as a person. And
Mm.
so, like the fact that he was going through his own things, and he just kind of like, he just masked it so well. Like, I knew that obviously he struggled. Like, he had gone through things in his first deployment, his second deployment, losing a soldier, like all these things that been on him. But he was like a freaking, like, I don't want to say God, but he was just like like a Avenger. Like he was like he just didn't wear it on his face. He was like Captain America. Like and so when I found out he did it, I was just like, how? Like how could somebody like and then sadly he wouldn't be the last. I think when we talked our last talk we had, it was like kind of still fresh. I remember I brought it up, but since then I've lost three more friends from my same unit. Which there's only 135 of us. Three more of my friends have taken their life since then.
Mm.
But yeah, I was just so I was grateful for him as a person, for him saying like, "Hey, you need to go," because he did kick off the process of me even knowing what counseling was, and him making me go as my commander, but also a friend, and saying like, hey, now you have to go, because if you don't go, you disobey a direct order, you know. And so like
Right.
him just having
Right.
that foresight to say, you know what, like, hey, I'm struggling too, but you know what, like I know that you're struggling, and I have more experience of this than you, so I know you need to get help. But but part of me still feels really bad because like who was there to help him? You know, like nobody. You know, he was a commander. He was eventually going to be a lieutenant colonel, commanding a battalion level element. You know, I'm sure in the back of his mind, he probably thought like, you know what, I can't get help. I'm a commissioned
Man.
officer, and I go talk to somebody about all my problems. That'd have been the end of his career, I'm sure. You know, at least commanding people. You know, so and but like you know, sometimes it bothers me when sometimes I've heard people say like you know, suicide is cowardly and it's weak, which some people think that, but I don't think you have to understand the like what it takes for somebody to get to that point. Somebody who's that strong, has been through that many things, death, killing, different things, and they make the decision to do it to themselves. I'm not saying like you're a superhero if you kill yourself, but I don't think you understand that how the act itself and going through with it is. You know, put a gun to your head and pull a trigger.
Mm-hmm. 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 Man, I it's really like, and I'm not trying to, you know, to get emotional or whatever, but it really like it stirs my spirit, Jared, when I hear people talk about suicide and how it's a cowardly thing. And it's like, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what this man went through to get to this point in his or her life. We don't know that. So how can we sit here and judge somebody because they reached that point that it's it, this is it, I can't do it, right? Number two, it goes back to what we all talk about, or what I talk about a lot, is that we need to get over how people will view us. If we are hurting, we need to do something. We cannot afford to abuse ourselves just because somebody may not like how you come across, or some people may not like the fact that, hey, you know, he's a pussy. You know what I'm saying? Just for crying and saying, hey, I'm in pain over here. You know, we have to get over that stigma. It's okay to not be okay. Being not okay is what saves your damn life.
Yeah,
You admitting that you are not okay can save your ass. Being not being okay is what got me to go to the VA and get help. Because for years I just drank myself to sleep and it still didn't work, because I still woke up screaming and yelling. I still wanted to do some crazy shit to my life, to myself. You know what I mean? I kept that under wraps, but I showed it off by drinking a lot. If that does that resonate with you? Because I tried to hide it and I couldn't hide it. I had to do something, or something was going to be done to me, or I was going to do something to somebody else. We cannot afford, Brother Jared, to watch our brothers and sisters suffer in silence, be it in the military, civilian world. I don't care. That's why I do what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing this. And thank you again for coming on. But you know, we have to do more on a personal level and in a community level. You dig what I'm saying?
oh
And
yeah,
just by us talking and doing this, hopefully, and I'm praying that it reaches some people to say, hey, it's okay for us to speak out on this. It's okay to admit that I'm dealing with something that's beyond my control, because carrying this burden, it sucks. It sucks. I don't want to live. I don't want to hold this burden anymore. I want to let this shit go, and I want to live. You right? I want to live, but I need to know how to get rid of that burden. right? I need to first admit that I'm dealing with something that I can't control. Number one. Number two, who can I trust enough to open myself up for and be vulnerable to? That part is the scary part. You don't want to sit here and bare your soul to somebody who doesn't give a shit about you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You want to sit here and talk to some people or a person who understands where you're coming from. And once we find that person that we could unload on, you know, I think I think that there those two steps alone will start the road to recovery for you. It's not going to be overnight. It may never fully happen, but you are on the road to doing something positive with your life. Does that make sense?
No, you hit the
So
you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I think, and that's the thing, because like I realized this, like, because knowing, like, four people that have killed themselves in the last 5 year period, like, that's not
yeah,
normal. That's not
crazy.
a normal thing
Oh,
to know that many people who have committed
oh,
suicide. So it's like, when I think
not at
about
all.
that, you're right. We got to do something for each other. Like you said, that's why I think this is so powerful. And I think that, like you and I think we see the value of it. But I hope other people who are military, not military, see the value of it, because like people even hearing this, like, we're being vulnerable. We're talking about things that
Right.
they don't really get talked about.
Yeah.
So if you can see, like, and not to even make it like, oh, we'll make it a man thing. So like people see men a certain way. Men don't, you're not supposed to cry, those things and all that. And I'm toxic as hell
Right.
too about a
Right.
lot of things. I don't. I rag on men when they cry sometimes. Like, look at this dude crying in public. Like, I'm I'll be honest, but if you can see two men
Soft
be,
ass dude, man.
yeah, like, look at this dude, man. Put them tears in your fucking pocket. Pick up that weakness.
Yeah, pick up them tears, man. What the hell you doing?
We're being vulnerable, like, right now. We're talking about this. So if somebody can see, like, two men talk about this and say, you know what? Like, damn, he's talking about suicide. He's talking about a time when he felt low. He's telling me about a time, like, I see the emotion. I can see these things. Like, they can do it. I can do
Yeah.
it. So, like, that's how powerful this conversation is, because we're doing something. We're adding to the conversation for others to have this conversation. So I think that's important. That really is important. It can't be understated at all. Like, that, just talking and just having open dialogue. Whether, if two people that serve together just get on live together and just have a conversation, or they just call each other and talk about things like this. I think it's important to changing that. This I'll bring up something. So, like, having, like, I've said this to somebody, like, a good drill sergeant is like the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm gonna send this to him. But my drill sergeant, his name was Drill Sergeant Parker. He's one of my drill sergeants. When I was in basic training, like, initially, I hated his guts, like, with a passion. Like,
Mm.
like, like, this is '08. So, I mean, like, they were still really allowed to, like, get your ass, like, back then. Like, he made our life a living hell, like, every single day. So, like, and
Mm.
when I went to Afghanistan, I went to, like, an MWR. Like, I was able to get on the computer, and I friended him on Facebook. We became friends. I started talking to him. I told him
What's
what I was doing.
NWR?
I was like,
What's
oh
NWR?
man, you got me on the spot. Was it morale, welfare, recreation? Yeah, yeah. Morale,
Okay.
it's like they have these little tents, like, at, like, certain bases where you can go to, and you can, like, like, pay, like, use a phone, or, like, like a webcam, talk to your family and all that. So, like,
Oh, okay.
I remember getting on Facebook, and I friended them on there, and he sent my friend request. We started talking. We rest of history. I'm still friends with him on Facebook to this day. We comment on things. But I remember one time I made a post back in, like, right around the time I got out. And, like, the term, like, dysfunctional veteran, it's like a comedy term. And I made a post about being, like, a dysfunctional veteran. And I remember he commented on it. He's like, "Did I raise you to be dysfunctional? Nah, I raised you to be productive and do what you needed to do, like, and make shit happen." And so I remember deleting the post, like, you know what, like, oh shit, like, because he still, like, has that drill sergeant way about him. So I deleted it, and I remember, and I think about it to this day, and I was like, you know what, like, the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, whatever. I don't know about the Coast Guard, but
Right, right. I
uh,
don't know about them. Yeah, yeah.
but
Uh,
they didn't. No, even the Coast Guard too, man. They take down submarines and drug ships and all that. I give them some credit.
yeah,
Um,
I guess they made a movie about it. I guess. Oh, hey.
yeah, they had they had Ashton Kutcher, so I guess like we'll give them that. You
It was a
know,
good movie too, by the way.
it was. It wasn't like an Army and Marine movie. We had a badass shit. Helicopters coming in,
Right.
swacking people, kicking in
Yeah.
doors. Shooting up bedrooms, like all the cool stuff. But I so like these branches, they take us, mold us, the Army and Marine specifically, into hardened individuals. I don't know about now, but back then they did. You know, they take you and they transform you as a person. A good drill sergeant is going to make you somebody. I remember him. He started said, "You either want to be strong or you want to be smart." And he's like, "Oh, you don't want to be smart. I guess you have to be strong. So we'll just bear crawl, do push ups, walk on our hands, all this kind of stuff." But so they transform you into this thing. So like for you to get all that training, go to war, get to be like damn near baptized in blood to be a combat veteran, to be a warrior, all these things, gone through hard things. They say hard times create hard people. So you become this person, and just to get out and label yourself a dysfunctional veteran, you're doing a disservice in a
Mm,
way to that drill sergeant, to the friends that died, the people who you could have helped, the people who whatever everything you did. I feel like when you say those things, I'm a dysfunctional veteran, or I'm these things, you're kind of minimalizing what you are. Like you don't like nobody wants to be dysfunctional. So I feel like words are powerful. If you say you're a dysfunctional veteran, then you're a dysfunctional veteran. But like now that I'm matured, I've grown a lot, through PTSD, ups and downs, still going through it. Like, I never want to be a dysfunctional veteran. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a man. I'm a
mm,
hardened individual because
mm,
of the things I've been through. I'm still struggling. I'm
mm,
still learning. I'm still progressing. But when he told me that, like, hey, I didn't raise you to be a dysfunctional veteran. Like, that's not what I want you to be. That resonates with me now.
mm,
Like, you know what? I don't want to be that. I'm more than that. And I think we need to tell
mm,
ourselves that as service members, men and women, like we're not like what you're not statistic. You're not PTSD. Like I think we should take the D off it and just put PTS, post traumatic stress, because it's not this. We don't have this. We're not disorder. We don't have a disorder. We suffer from post traumatic stress because of the events and things we've been in. So we need to start telling ourselves that, telling our brothers and sisters that, like, you're not like, yeah, you've been through some fucked up things, but you are not a fucked up person. Like you're a warrior, you're a soldier, you're a marine. That title, I mean, I got the coolest uniforms anyway, so I mean, you already got to beat on that, but we gotta
yeah, man.
we gotta remember
I
that, I
got
think,
you.
and just start telling our brothers and sisters that.
Dig it, dig it. Um, I meant to ask you this question before, but I'll ask again. I'll ask you now that I'm thinking about it. Um, after you did your tours and you got back to base, when did you start noticing symptoms of PTSD?
Are you referring to while I was still in, or while I was still downrange in Afghanistan?
While you were still in, yeah, when you got back to the mainland and you were back on base, when did you start
Uh,
noticing?
for me, it was the first time I went to Walmart. I went to Walmart with my wife, so I'm like, I'll blame some things on like PTSD, but I've been an impatient person my whole entire life. Like my dad
Dig it.
was baby boomer, grew up in the '50s. My dad was military; he was Air Force, but back in the '70s. So like he didn't play like moving around, moving like molasses and all that. Like we had to get our shit done and move our asses basically as kids. So
Quickly,
like I'm
quickly, yeah.
quickly. So yeah, old school parents, like yeah, like turn the gospel music on and clean on
You're
clean the damn house with bleach, like
right.
yeah.
Right.
So
You're
I've
right.
been impatient my whole entire life. I've been an impatient person, but I realized like what, like when I was in Walmart, I was like I just like I had a gray shirt on. I remember it was like a gray like Rydell or like Russell shirt, and it was like it was wet, like it was soaking wet, and I was just like I was having I didn't even know what a panic attack was. I didn't think it was a real thing. I heard the term, but I was like that's just shit people make up when they're just like don't want to be somewhere, like But I remember just feeling like crazy, like heavy breathing. I remember being like just kind of like really overwhelmed by the experience of being in Walmart, more than just being impatient on my wife and everything, just like, wanting her to hurry up. It was like, no, like something's going on. But I downplayed it. I was like, you know what? I'm ready to get out of Walmart. There's too many people in here. But when you think about it, like, okay, too many people, the space, people's carts going around, people looking at you, you sweating, you think people are nervous, notice your shirt being wet. That makes you more hyper vigilant and all that. So it's like all that stuff. Like back then, I was just like, I minimized it. Now I realized I was having a panic attack, like in the middle of Walmart, in the
Mm.
middle. I was stationed in
Oh,
Hawaii at the time, in the middle of Hawaii, Walmart having a panic attack. So that was the first time I noticed, and then it was just like little things here and there. I always had an anger problem. I can't attribute that to PTSD, but I've noticed it was heightened. It went from like, you know what, I want to choke this person out as a kid, or I want to, I want to put you to sleep or slam me on your head, to I want to kill this person because you got in my lane or you're riding my ass. I want to come Swiss cheese your fucking car because you're
right.
on my bumper, or I want to see your whole entire family get blown up because you're weaving in and out of traffic. Like it went to another level
Yeah,
with me, like which is
right.
obviously crazy, and unrealistic and unreasonable and wrong. But that's when I started to know it's like something different. Like I don't want to just hurt. I want to kill. Like
You want
like
to
yeah, I don't want to see you get a flat tire. Or I want to see your car flip over
right
a few times. Like
flip.
yeah. So that's kind of where I noticed the difference for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So right. So your feelings were more intense rather than just the what the fuck. It's like, I want you to die now,
Yeah.
horribly. Right.
The
Okay,
biggest thing
cool.
for me too, I want to say, just like looking back, and it's crazy now. Like I said, maturity and growth is such a powerful thing. I mean, with age, time,
Sure.
I'm 34 years old now. But I mean, back being 22, 23 years old, looking back, like I remember, I think it was in 2012, Whitney Houston died. And I grew up as a kid. I love Whitney Houston. I listen to her. My parents listen to her music. Remember she died, I was so pissed off, and I was all over Facebook talking about, like, calling Whitney Houston a crackhead, and why, who cares she died? My brothers are getting slaughtered in combat right now. You know what? And all y'all care about is damn Whitney Houston, and Paul Walker died, and I made all these kind of posts, and I was posting memes about it, laughing and joking, and I was like, like, man, like looking back, like I was like I was a hurt person, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
hurt people. I like if
Right.
because I saw civilians. I was like, people like, why the hell? Why are you crying about Whitney Houston? Like, you don't even know her. I watched my friend get blown to pieces. Yeah, I didn't get to see him. We put him in a bag, and y'all talking about Whitney Houston overdose on crack.
Right.
But it was just
Like,
that
what?
I was so desensitized from death. You're talking about a woman that died in a bathtub versus my friend, you know, took his last step on IED, and there was, we had to collect him. So it's like, thinking about that, it's like back then, it's like, okay, it was rational. I'm right. You guys are wrong. You should not be. You should be talking about service members. Y'all don't post when people die in Afghanistan or Iraq every single day, but y'all post about Whitney Houston. Now I realize, like, you know what? The American public is so far gone from that, they don't have any idea of what war looks like. And in a way, they shouldn't need to know because we don't have a draft. You want to go in the military, you join. You want to be exposed to those things, you're exposed to it. I think they should have an appreciation for the military and the sacrifice, but you can't expect people who have been in that environment to be able to really empathize at the level that you can with death and how intimate it is losing somebody you care about. And now being a mature 33-year-old man, I understand that now. Whereas then I just, like, fuck Whitney Houston and Paul Walker. That's how I felt back then. Now I was real. I'm embarrassed. I went back to Facebook and deleted those posts since then, so they never surfaced to see the light of day. But I understand now.
Like, my bad, y'all. My bad.
Yeah, I had to grow up, man, a little bit, but just being an immature 22, 23-year-old and like losing
Yeah.
somebody and not knowing, not having the tools to cope with it, only to lash out, to want to get revenge, want to hurt people. I had a very like strong disdain for Muslims and Afghan people and Middle Eastern people, like a very unhealthy dislike for them. And honestly, when and I don't know, can I talk about the withdrawal, the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Sure.
That really
Go for it. Go
affected
for it.
me because from 2016 to 2021, it was a better time, a lot of ups and downs, but more of so a healing period for me. But then seeing the way that they fumbled the Afghanistan withdrawal and what happened in a country that I literally, blood, sweat, and tears gave in, save people in that country, save local nationals' lives in that country, done so much in that country, lost friends in that country, put like built
Mm.
stuff up, built schools, all that stuff, and to watch the Taliban take it back in a week, like I was just like the Taliban, the people who like, oh man, like I could go on about it forever, but just to see how that really messed with me for a long time, and like I remember that week just being in a pissed off mood, and my wife not really understanding why. I think she understood eventually, but it's like, what's going on with you? And I was just like, you just don't like
Yeah.
we built a combat outpost. We named it after my friend Andrew. We built the whole thing. The Taliban probably in that outpost, feet kicked up, scratching their balls right now, probably. Because we gave them the country back. I can't blame
Right.
them. I do the same
Right.
thing if I was them. They're just doing it. And
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
I think we talked about this at the beginning, but like PTSD being a roller coaster, but also having growth and maturity. Where I hate these people. I hated Afghans. I thought they were lazy. I thought they all were like Taliban sympathizers, and even the Taliban themselves. They're disgusting people. They fight very unconventionally. But honestly, if I was born in Afghanistan, I'd be doing the same thing they'd be doing. At the end of the day, being a warrior myself, I can understand that that's just a warrior on the other side. So sometimes when I hear people like say like, oh, like they're fucking pal heads and all these other things, and they call these names, I'm like, well, you don't have to fight them. They're actually they believe in their cause. They are real fighters, and they're willing to fight to the death in freaking flip flops and man pajamas for what they believe in. So at the end of the day, like, while I still hate them, and if we're face to face with weapons, it's gonna go down. But still, there's still a fighting force that fights for what they believe in, the way I fight for what I believe in, which is taking care of my family and being somewhat of service to my country. So you can't fault them for doing that. I fault them for, yes, killing my best friend and a lot of things, and putting us in situations, but they were just doing what they were trained to do. Same way we're doing what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
We were in their
Yeah.
backyard, because if they come to our backyard, we're gonna fuck them up over here.
Dig it. Dig that. Dig that. You mentioned counseling and that you stopped going. Have you ever thought about going back to counseling?
So I did go back. I went back in 2016. I discovered the vet center, which is like kind of separate from the VA. I actually
Okay.
found a group there. It was a OEF veterans group, so people around the same age as me. Some guys were older too, but it was a group setting. Our group leader, he was a Marine. Uh, he was a real cool dude. He did a really good job at the group the way he led it, because it was kind of like we would just come in and we would just talk. It made you feel open. So like we would start talking about current events that always led back to the military or people's trauma. And sometimes people would go off. Sometimes people would be in there crying. Sometimes people would be in there screaming, like literally, like to the point where you thought they were going to do something, but they'd be just letting it out. Like you could just let out everything in a safe space for like people who were like all in the same boat. And that group went from like 2016 to I think the beginning of 2019. And then our group leader, the Marine Scott, he retired. Um, and then the Veterans Health Administration dropped the ball. They didn't hire another counselor, and the group kind of got disbanded. So I stopped going, but you know what? Trying to be a productive, good veteran member of society. I was like, I'm gonna go back to the VA and see what they have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went back, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like, I was like, I just want to talk to somebody. I don't really want to like pick one of these care plans, because they have like, I don't know if you heard of like prolonged exposure, which is like talks about the traumatic events of your life, where you actually have to write about the event over and over again and talk about it to this counselor, and they like discuss what you wrote about. And there's like cognitive behavior therapy, which is another treatment therapy. So I was like, they told me like, well, hey, you can't just come in and talk to somebody. You actually have to pick a treatment plan. So like, I was like, well, I'm not, I really don't want to do that. Like, well, but I picked a treatment plan. I picked prolonged exposure because I felt like that was best talking about the event in which the most traumatic event I went through was seeing my best friend get killed. Um, so I went through that, and I feel like it ruined me. Like I had the most vivid, worst nightmares that I don't even want to talk about it. Honestly, it was so bad. It was like I was like honestly waking up in my sleep and it was still going on. Like I was still visualizing what I was having a nightmare of, and I felt like I was damn like
Mm,
I was a grown ass 300-pound man scared to walk out of my room at night without a gun and a
man,
flashlight because I was still dealing with like the dream. It was that bad from having to write about it and talk to him about it. So I told her, like, this isn't working for me.
right.
And she's like, okay, we want to try something else. Like, no, can I just talk to you with how about I'm feeling? And she's like, yeah, like, how you feeling today? I talked to her. She's like, well, unfortunately, this is the end of our session. So, next time we meet, you have to pick a treatment plan. And I was like, are you listening to what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm telling you? I'm telling you, I want to come here, but I don't want to pick one of these plans. I want to talk to you about how I'm feeling. And you're telling me that's not what is in the parameters of treatment. So you don't want me to what works for me. You want to do what you think works for me. And that's my problem.
Mm,
The only problem with the VA is
mm,
they have all this goddamn funding,
mm,
they have all these programs and all that. But sometimes, if you listen to, which I'm not a victim, but if you listen to the person who's telling you what they need help for, maybe it just might work. Versus telling them somebody who's never been to combat, never served a day in the military, but you have a big ass degree that tells you the cognitive behavior therapy or keep talking about a traumatic event. It's going to help you get better one day eventually. Well, maybe that'll help like a childhood abuse victim, or maybe that might help a combat veteran who killed somebody. Maybe it might help. Maybe it doesn't work for this kind of veteran or this kind of combat veteran. But they don't listen. That's the problem. Like they don't want like they just have all these degrees and plans that, and so I haven't been back since then because the group at the vet center was disbanded. It hasn't been restarted. I call maybe once a month and it's like, hey, we haven't found anybody. And then the VA has explicitly told me that, hey, you can't, you have to pick a treatment plan. So honestly, I've been trying to find things myself to like, really like listening to, believe it or not, listen to podcasts, see the other veterans talk about these things. And I've learned so much just getting on YouTube. Like I said, that's why this is like to me. Like, I when you told me about this, I was going to be here because this is powerful. Just talking to you right now, I'm learning something
yes.
and I'm healing in a way. Just having this conversation with you right now.
Amen, brother. Amen. That's what I want to hear, man. Because I like I said, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how I think it's important for us, not only as veterans, but as Black men, to speak up and speak out on the things that's really troubling us. Because if we continue to hold on to this unnecessary hurt, like it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah,
So all we're going to do is just take our frustrations out on somebody, and there you go. You know, the hurt, our hurt's going to hurt somebody else, and their hurt. You know what I'm saying? We're just spreading negativity, and I just think that we need to have within ourselves the ability to be open and say, hey, you know, I think that I should talk about it because maybe what I went through can help somebody.
yeah,
You know, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing right here. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that, the goal for me is, yeah, I want somebody to tell me, man, thank you. Thank you for doing this because you are helping people. You know, I'm not doing this for any vainglorious reasons, man. I'm doing this because we suffer. We suffered in silence and we acted out inappropriately during our suffering. And thank God we didn't take ourselves out or take anybody out. You dig what I'm saying? Because it could have went left quick, easily.
oh yeah.
Tell me I'm lying. The shit could have went
Man,
left quick.
you're
You,
100
you dig what I'm
percent spot
saying?
on, man. 100% spot on. There's been so many
Shit.
times like, this is the like I where in the past I've been to that point, like, like I just need this to happen. I need somebody to do this, to push that button, so I can go all out, and I'm
Bigger.
gonna show you why.
Give me a reason.
Like, yeah, because once you push that button, or you do this, or if this happens, or there's been sometimes where, like, I don't even need that to happen. I'm so low where,
Mm-hmm.
what, I just gotta wake
Mm-hmm.
up in the morning, or I gotta find the energy to go, to just go overboard. And so, having like this conversation, and like, man, like I want to be the first to say thank you to you, because when we had the first conversation the first time, that was like the first time me like knowing that people were going to see me talking about things I've been through, and I was really apprehensive about it. But I was like, you know what? I wanted to do it, but I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And when I watched the replay, I was like, man, like, can't believe that. First of all, I can't believe I said all that shit on there, but like, I was like, man, you know what? Like, I've never expressed myself in that way. I talk to people for a living in my job. Like, that's part of what I do. And my day job, I talk to people every day about their problems, different things they're going through. Um, for what I do, like, to pay the bills, but
Yeah.
talking about myself and having a conversation about like deep and dark and sometimes even embarrassing moments in my life. Um, like, that was something that was like taboo. So doing that with you the first time was the first time that's ever really happened. Outside talking to a counselor, or outside talking in a closed room in a group setting with other veterans who were somewhere worse off than me, that was different. But doing it like face to face on a
Mm-hmm.
camera, and honestly, like you
Right.
mentioned this, if there's only one person that sees this who is going through half or more than what we're going through, you're like, you know what, man, I can relate to that. Like, that's a success, in
Yes,
itself.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Man. Well, I appreciate that, brother, man. I mean, hey, it's you know, I'm just doing my part, or trying to anyway. And if I could help change one person point of view about their lives and their direction, man, then I did my part.
I think what
I
makes
did
it
my part.
different is because think about how many veterans there are that are the same like boat as you, but they won't take the step to do it. Like, I mean, I'm one of those people. I could get involved in and want to do this more, but I mean, it takes courage to for one share your own story, and two to invite other
Yeah,
people on to share their story, to ask the question, ask tough
yeah,
questions. I mean, those aren't questions like like there's quite some of the things we talk about. Psychologists and psychiatrists will ask those things, but they're just reading from a freaking clipboard. Do you want to kill yourself? Tell me about when you first noticed you had PTSD.
right,
They're just reading from a clipboard. They're not having a transparent
right.
conversation like this. So I think what you're doing, there's so many people that could do it, but they don't have the courage. Not shaming them, they just haven't reached
Right.
that point yet, and that level of wanting to help or give back or knowing how to. And you got to figure it out, man. So hats off to you, man.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. Well, I want to ask you another question. Uh, in your home with your wife that you've been married to since high school, um, has there ever been a point where your wife said, "Hey, Jarred, you need to change this and this. Go."
Man, are you
Talk
talking about
about
on a weekly basis? Yeah, I mean, how many times a week are we talking?
another conversation.
No, nah, man,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, no. So that's something that definitely should be discussed. So no, I've definitely been in that boat, because honestly, I learned about like I learned this from another veteran. This guy was he was he was a Navy SEAL. I'm sorry, he's Delta Force, he's Army. Um, and
Okay.
he talked about secondary PTSD. Well, I never heard of that before. I didn't know what it was. When he talked about it,
Secondary.
yeah, he's talking about secondary PTSD, where how your PTSD has an effect on your spouse, your children, and honestly, you start putting a lot of the things that you go through on them. And in a way, while they haven't been to the war or through the trauma that you've been through or the different things, they start having some of those things and dealing with it. And kind of like I'll say, me and my wife, like I said, we've been together since high school. She was through the whole military phase, out of the military, so she's seen every facet of me grow up as a man, the boy, all that. deal with PTSD, get better, get worse, get better, get worse. So I noticed like over time, I think we're I mean, obviously we're two different people, so I don't feel like it's affect her in like the way that it has me, but she's starting to like, she's dealt with some of the things that like I've dealt with, like some like her anger and frustration sometimes doesn't come from like, hey, I'm angry that you have it, but it's like I don't understand. Like so how you don't understand why you feel this way. I don't understand what I can do sometimes to help it, to help you get through this day or help you, hey, that you're sitting here watching CNN and Fox News, watching the withdrawal of Afghanistan, seeing her pissed off, then there were tears in your eyes. What can I do for you? But you can't. You're not talking to me about it. So I'm dealing with that type of anger
Mm.
because while you can't help yourself, I can't help you either. So we're kind of putting that secondary PTSD on our loved ones in a way by some of the things, by us not talking, by us not getting help, by us not including them. I think that's why counseling is powerful. I've been to marriage counseling within like the like last year and a half, a year and a half ago we went. We talked about some of those things. It was helpful. Some ways it wasn't. Of course, like it's marriage counseling,
Right,
but
right, right,
I
right.
learned a lot just by just kind of like listening, and it's still work in progress. Obviously, like I'm still learning to this day, but I learned about secondary PTSD, how your symptoms can be put off on your
Yeah,
spouse and your children by the things you do, and I've kind of noticed that, and I feel like, but I mean, my wife's she's a strong person. She's dealt with me for this many years, all like my ups and
yeah,
downs. She might
yeah.
be stronger than me in some ways. So,
Bless her heart.
but
Bless her heart, man.
but yes, has she threatened to like take everything and leave me on my ass in the backyard? Probably a few times.
All you gotta do is turn over the key and just keep it moving, right?
Yeah, all I need is a box and my rifle, man. I'll go sleep in a cardboard box. I'll be all
Well, that'll be another discussion, man.
right. Yeah.
Have you ever had any episodes at your job?
Um, near episodes, yes. So when I was determined to like, I wanted to find a way to like to serve again after the military. So let me go work for the government. My first job was at DFAS, which was working in an office setting, which wasn't like the best like place to go work. Just being there, I
What's
was in a
DFAS, sir?
what's it?
What's DFAS?
Defense.
Break that
Uh,
down, brother.
the people that fuck up your paychecks in the military. Uh, uh, it's true because they do though. But Defense Finance Accounting
There
Service. Yeah.
you
Um.
go. Okay.
No, I went and worked there as my first job. I was like an accounting technician where I just like I probably did more harm than I did good, messing around with people's numbers and stuff. I'm sure I didn't do like anywhere near what I needed to do working there. But working there was like I was in a decline because I was in an office environment. Working with like people from all different facets of life. And I remember one there was like I kind of like tried to come out of my shell there, like like I felt like let me interact, let me start talking to people. I remember one time we had a potluck, like and somebody brought me a plate and I threw it away like right in front of them, like I don't want it. And I was like, that was when I first started, and so but I was like, what,
What?
let me just be better. Yeah, I was an asshole at some points, like in my life, man. And I look back and I was totally
Wow.
wrong by doing that. But I remember like, what, let me interact with people. So I was like, let me show them a different side of myself. So I started like, I made friends with people there. Like, like still I'm friends with so many people to this day. But I remember like, I felt like, what, like I'm letting too much out. Like, why am I being nice? Why am I like coming in? Like, why am I interacting and going to like office get togethers and stuff like that? And I remember I was sitting there with both my earbuds in, and this guy, his race, it doesn't even matter what his race was, but he was non-African American, non-black, and he came and he put his hand on the back of my chair and said, "Jarred," like that, and I remember
Oh,
but it's like he did it.
oh,
And he had a goofy ass smile on his face when I turned around, and I remember standing up. I remember cussing his ass out and just like going off and like just short of like threatening his
oh.
life. Like I was like, I remember where I was, and I was like, you know what, like, and I gotta like do something else. Like I don't want to be here anymore. And I remember I eventually did get another job within the government, and the rest is history. Where I work at now, I still work for the government. Um, but I've had those experiences prior to that. When I first got out from my first jobs, definitely at work there was times, but I've always like, and I think I told this story in the last talk we had, but the first time I ever got fired for fighting somebody at work was when my wife was like 6 months pregnant with my first daughter, right before I joined the military. We had her when I just turned 18. I was about to turn 18, um, and my daughter was going to be born that summer. And I remember I was working at McDonald's, and I fought this guy on shift. I slammed him on his head, stomped him out, all that, and then I walked inside and told him I have to go home. And I remember my dad came. I didn't have a license at the time. My dad came to pick me up from work, told him I got fired, and he was just like, "You're gonna have a kid in a few months, and you can fire from a job." And I remember telling him, we were girlfriend and boyfriend at the time, telling her like, "I got fired. I fucked this dude up." There, I was like somewhat proud about it. Like I won, of course, but
Mm.
and like she wasn't like disappointed or mad, but I could see like the concern a little bit, like and then that has stuck with me from 18 years old till now. And that's always been like, I feel like my wife and my kids literally been the saving grace for everything from civilian to army back to civilian life. Because without them, I wouldn't have a reason or a purpose not to go overboard, whether it's beating somebody, whether it's hurting somebody, whether it's just snapping completely. Because I mean, what other purpose would I have? I didn't have value in myself. I don't really care about like what happened to me, but I know I have a responsibility to my wife and kids that's never ending, and that has always been like I want to say the guardrail, like the iron guardrail. It's like stopped me from going
Mm.
overboard because when I've been
Yeah.
there to that point, regardless PTSD, anything, I can see my kid, my daughter's face in the back of my mind. I can see my wife, and see like I can already feel the disappointment of what it would be like. They might not tell me, but if I like went to jail and couldn't provide for them, I already know. Like, and because I'm hard on men about that. Like, I don't play about you taking care of your kids or doing that. And so
Yeah.
I'll never be a hypocrite in that aspect. I'll be a hypocrite about other things, like and all that, but not that. Like so.
Dig it. Dig
Um,
it.
that's
Dig
been
it.
the guardrail for sure of not going overboard. But no, work definitely. I've almost snapped a few times on people and places. Now I just try to tactfully do it in a way like and still get my gratification without losing my job.
All right. Um, Last question. What advice could you give to somebody that is going through, you know, uh, I'm not going to say just PTSD, but what advice would you give to somebody, especially coming out of the military, uh, that you think could help them out in the long run as a civilian?
Honestly, the biggest thing I could say probably is you're never too big to get help. You're never too far with some help. A lot of people, there's always somebody willing around. Even there's people around you feel like don't care. There's somewhere you can go where somebody listen. You might call a suicide hotline, and that person might not even know you from Adam, but they're still gonna listen. And that little bit of hey, what somebody does care about you might help. So sometimes I feel like we have to like set our pride aside as men and women, and and seek out the help that's available. Sometimes as veterans, it's easy to say the resources aren't there. We haven't looked because we don't want to look. And I've been in that boat. The resources sometimes are shitty and they are low and they are few and far, but there are some there. You have to want to do the work. But the biggest piece of advice I can just give anybody, veteran or just in general struggling, is really just to lean forward. If you lay down or if you take a knee for too long or you stop, then you're gonna eat yourself alive in your thoughts. You're gonna get depressed, and it's gonna become you,
Mm-hmm.
and you will become a dysfunctional veteran or person or a
Mm.
man or a woman. But if you just lean forward and kind of like I don't know, like I remember back in the day when you like ruck march, like when you I thought I used to be a beast at ruck march, just pat myself on the back a little bit. um, I would run down hills, and then when it was a flat land, 50, 60 pound ruck, it was flat. I would just kind of
Yeah.
like, do a little airborne shuffle and just shuffle. But it was a hill, we would run down it. And then the last, like, 400 or 500 meters, we were sprinting our ass off with a 50 pound ruck on, running as hard as we could. So, and you just got to lean forward, because you lean back, like that, it's going to, that pressure is going to pull you back. You got a big ass rucksack on. So if you just lean forward in life, I think, and just continue to always lean forward, regardless of what you're going through, that alone will carry you. Now that alone is not enough, because you just keep leaning forward and just, sucking it up, then yeah, it's going to eat you up, and you'll crash. So lean forward and seek help, but like lean forward and stop, lean forward and talk to people, lean forward and get on Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross, because
Yes, sir.
these conversations will help. But just keep always pushing forward. Don't stay stagnant too long, because you find yourself drowning in your own sorrow and pity sometimes, and you get in a pity pool before you know it.
I like that, man. Lean forward. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's deep. That's deep. I'm gonna borrow that for a minute too, man.
Hey
But
man,
I'm gonna quote you though when I say it. I'm gonna quote you though. All right.
you can use it as needed, man. Use it as much as you need to.
Yeah. Hey, brother. How can people reach you
So I'm on
if they
I'm on
want to
Facebook.
talk?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Just Jarred Edgerton, Jarred. Last name Edgerton. You can find me on there. I'm on there probably too
Okay.
much sometimes, just scrolling.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, I just send me a message on there. Somebody can Gmail me if anybody watching this. Just first name dot last name at gmail.com. If you work for the government, I'm in global. Just find me on there somewhere. Anywhere. I mean, but honestly, I mean, if they can't find me, they can find you on here, and then they can find me through there. And if somebody wants to have a conversation or
Man, brother.
got questions, they could
Man.
always reach out. But now we need to have more of these conversations. Definitely. But now again, man, I want to thank you for
Yeah.
facilitating this. It's been therapeutic for sure.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you, man. Um, well, I don't have any other questions to ask of you, but I think we had a really good discussion, and you know, I hope that whoever gets a chance to listen to this, can learn from it as well. Um, my message to everybody that will take the time to listen to this is to reach out. Reach out. Don't be afraid. Don't suffer in silence. And one thing that I always stress, Brother Jarred, is that it's okay to not be okay. I will continue to say that until my last breath, man. It is okay to not be okay. Just do something about it. You know what I mean? So with that being said, brother, man, we are done with this podcast for today. Thank you for joining us. This is the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. And I hope you guys, including yourself, Jarred, have a good evening. And you guys take care, man.
All right, y'all take care, man.
So,
Appreciate you, man.
yes, sir, my brother. Let's sign off, man. I'm checking off. So you be cool.
All right, you too,
All
man.
right.
Out of here.